around me, and the sun became hot. Oh, heatless, not heartless. Nature, nature, nature decayed around me, and the sun became heatless. Rain and snow heatless. Rain and snow poured around me. Mighty rivers were frozen. The surface of the earth was hard and chill and frozen. Frozen. The surface of frozen. Frozen. The surface of the earth was hard and chill and bare, and I found no shelter. No shelter. Oh, oh, earth. How often earth. Oh, earth. How often did I imprecate curses on the cause of my being? The mildness of my nature had fled, and all within the mildness of my being. The mildness of my nature had fled, and fled, and fled, and all within me was turned to gall and bitterness. And bitterness. Gall and bitterness. The nearer I approached to your habitation, the more deeply did I feel the spirit of revenge enkindled in my heart. In my heart. Kindled in my heart. Snow fell, and the waters were hard. Fell, and fell, and the waters were hardened, but hardened, but hardened, but hardened, but hardened, but I rested not. A few incidents rested not. A few incidents now and then directed me, and I possessed a map of the country, but I often wandered wide from my path. From my path. The agony of my feelings allowed me no respite. No incident occurred from which my rage... No respite. No incident occurred from which my rage and misery could not extract its food. But food. But a circumstance that happened when I arrived on the confines of Switzerland, when the sun... Switzerland. Switzerland. Confines of Switzerland, when the sun had recovered its warmth and the earth again began to look green, confirmed, and to look green, confirmed in an especial manner the bitterness, in a special manner, the in an especial manner, the bitterness and horror of my feelings. My feelings. And horror of my feelings. I generally rested during the day and travelled only when I was secured by night from the view of man. One of man. View of man. One morning, however, finding that my path lay through a deep wood, I ventured to continue my wood. A deep wood lay through a deep wood. I ventured to continue my journey after the sun had risen. The day, which was one of the first journey after the sun had risen. The day, which was one of the first of spring, cheered even me by the loveliness of its sunshine and the balminess of its air. Cheered even me by cheered which was one of the first of spring, cheered even me by the loveliness of its sunshine and the balminess of the air. I felt of the air. Balminess of the air. I felt emotions of gentleness and pleasure that had of gentleness and pleasure that had long gentleness and pleasure that had long appeared dead revive within me. Revive within me. Half surprised by the novelty of these sensations, I allowed myself to be borne away by them, and by them. Allowed myself to be borne away by them, and forgetting my solitude and dared deformity, dared to be happy. Happy. Soft to be happy. Soft tears again bedewed my cheeks, and I even raised my cheeks, and I even raised my humid eyes with thankfulness towards the blessed sun, which bestowed such joy. The sun, which bestowed such joy upon me. Joy upon me. I continued upon me. I continued to wind among the paths of the wood until I came to its boundary, which was skirted by a deep and rapid river into which many of the trees bent their branches, now budding with the fresh spring. Bent their branches, now budding, bent their branches, now budding with the fresh spring. Spring. Here I paused, not exactly. Here I paused, not exactly knowing what path to pursue, when I heard pursue, when I heard the sound of voices that induced voices that induced me to conceal myself under the shade of a cypress. Under the shade of a cypress. I was scarcely hid when a young girl came running towards the spot where I was concealed, laughing. Concealed, laughing as if she ran laughing as if she ran from someone in sport. Ran from someone in sport. She continued her course along the precipitous sides of the river when suddenly her foot slipped and she fell into the rapid stream. Slipped and she fell into the rapid stream. Rapid stream. I rushed from my hiding place and with extreme labor from the force of the current saved her and dragged her to the shore She to the shore. She was senseless, and I endeavored by every means in my power to restore animation. When I was suddenly interrupted by the approach of a rustic who was probably the person from whom she had playfully fled. On seeing me, he darted towards me, and tearing the girl from my arms, hastened towards the deeper parts of the wood. A bit of a guard. I followed speed parts of the wood. Towards the deeper parts of the wood. I followed speedily. I hardly knew why, but when the man Why? But why? Why? But when the man saw me drew near, he aimed a gun which he carried at my body and fired. Fired. And fired. I sank to the ground, and my injurer, with increased swiftness, escaped into the wood. To the wood. This was the reward. This was the reward. This was then the reward of my benevolence. Benevolence. I had saved a human being from destruction, and as a recompense, I now writhed under the miserable I now writhed under the miserable pain of a wound which shattered the flesh and bone. Under the miserable pain of a wound which shattered the flesh and bone. The feelings of kindness and gentleness which I had entertained but a few moments before gave place moments before gave place to hellish rage and gnashing of teeth. Of teeth. Inflamed gnashing of teeth. Gnashing of teeth. Inflamed by pain, I vowed eternal hatred and vengeance to all mankind. But the agony of my all mankind. But the agony of my wound overcame me. My pulses overcame me. My pulses overcame me. My pulses paused and I fainted. I can never quite tell which cars and traffic for some weeks. And I fainted. For some weeks, I led a miserable life in the woods, endeavoring to cure the wound which I had received. The ball received. The ball had entered my shoulder, and I knew not whether it had remained there or passed through. At any rate, I had no means of extracting it. At any rate, I had no means of extracting it. Such traffic now. My suffering means of extracting it. At any rate, I had no means of extracting it. My sufferings were augmented also by the oppressive sense of the injustice and ingratitude of their infliction. My daily vows rose for revenge, a deep and deadly revenge, such as would alone compensate for the outrages and anguish I had endured. endured. After some weeks, my wound healed, and I continued. Wound healed, and I continued my journey. The labors I enjoyed. My journey. Continued my journey. The labors I endured were no longer to be alleviated by the bright sun or gentle breezes of spring. Old joy. Spring. Of spring. Old joy was but a mockery which insulted my desolate state and made me feel state. Desolate state and made me feel more pain. Altered my desolate state and made me feel more painful. My desolate state and made me feel more painfully that I was not made for the enjoyment, for not made for the enjoyment, made for the enjoyment of pleasure. Pleasure. Enjoyment of pleasure. But my toils now drew near a close, and in 2 months, and in two a close, and in close, and in 2 months from this time I reached the environs of Geneva. It was evening. Geneva. It was evening when I arrived, and I arrived, and I retired to a hiding place among the fields that surround it to meditate. To meditate in what manner I should apply to you. Apply to you. I was oppressed by fatigue and hunger and far too unhappy to enjoy the gentle breeze of the evening or the prospect of the evening. Breeze of the evening or the prospect of the breeze of the evening or the prospect of the sun setting behind the I was oppressed by fatigue and hunger and far I was oppressed by fatigue and hunger and far too unhappy to enjoy the gentle breezes of evening or the prospect of the sun setting behind the stupendous mountains of Jura. At this time, a slight sleep relieved me from the pain of reflection, which was which was disturbed by the approach of a beautiful child who came running. Beautiful child who came running into the recess I had chosen, with all the with all the sportiveness of infant, with all I had chosen, with all the sportiveness of infancy. Suddenly, as I gazed on him, An idea on him, gazed on him. An idea seized me that this little creature was unprejudiced. Prejudice. An I An idea seized me that this little creature was An idea seized me. An idea seized me that this little creature was unprejudiced. Suddenly, as I gazed on him, an idea seized me that this little creature was unprejudiced and had lived too unprejudiced and had lived unprejudiced and had lived too short a time to have imbibed a horror of deformity. If deformity, horror of deformity. If, therefore, I could seize him and educate him as my companion and friend, I should not be so desolate. Friend, I should not be so desolate in this peopled earth. This peopled earth. In this peopled earth. Urged by this impulse, I seized on the boy as he passed and drew him towards me. As soon as him towards me, towards me, and drew him towards me. As soon as he beheld my form, he placed his hands before his eyes and uttered a shrill scream. I drew his hand forcibly from his face and scream. I drew his hand forcibly from his face and said, "Child, child," and said, "Child, what is the meaning of this? I do not the meaning of this. I do not intend to hurt you. Listen to me." He struggled. You listen to me. I do not intend to hurt you. Listen to me. He struggled violently. "Let me go," he cried. "Monster, ugly wretch. You wish to eat. You wish wretch. You wish to eat me and tear me to pieces. You are an ogre. You are an You are an ogre. You are an pieces. You are pieces. You are an ogre. Pieces. You are an ogre. Let let me go, or I will tell an ogre. Let me go, or I will tell my papa. Papa. Boy, you will never see your boy. You will boy. You will never see your father again. You must come with me. Hideous monster! He with me. Hideous monster! Come with me. Hideous monster, let me go. My papa is a syndic. He is Monsieur Frank. Syndic. He is Monsieur Frankenstein. He will punish you. You dare. You dare not keep me! Keep me! Frankenstein, you Frankenstein, you Frankenstein, you belong then to my enemy, to him towards me, my enemy. To him towards I have sworn eternal revenge. You shall be my foe. Who shall be my who shall be my first victim? Victim. The child still struggled and loaded me with epithets which carried despair to my heart. I grasped to my heart. I grasped his throat to silence him. Silence him. And in a moment, his throat to silence him. And silence him. And in a moment, he lay dead at my feet.